Right. I think that we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to everyone who is joining and or watching the recording. Today we have a special guest presenting over 5 GA4 features that will improve your data insights. That special guest is Nadal. I will have him introduce himself at a later moment in this webinar. But to start off, my name is Jared Fisher, and we want to roll out a quick poll for y'all. So, what GA4 features are you most excited about to learn for today? And as y'all are kind of also filling in those polls, I do just want to mention quickly, if you have any questions or would like to ask any questions in today's webinar, feel free to drop those in the Q&A chat. You should be able to see those down at the bottom of your screen. You should be able to access that Q&A. We'll make sure that people are monitoring those throughout the webinar. And whenever it comes time to the Q&A, if we have some time to go over a few, we'll definitely walk through those. If we don't get around to answering those, we'll definitely be reaching out either through your InfoTrust project team that you currently work with, or we'll be reaching out through our accounts team. So definitely feel free to drop those in. We'll make sure that we're following up with y'all for those. All right, so it looks like creating Explorer reports is pretty high, and also leveraging Google's AI and machine learning are two of our leaders so far. So appreciate y'all pulling in those polls. We appreciate it. Definitely feel free to let us know if there's anything that y'all have or any other questions that you have. With that, we are going to jump into today's agenda. So quick high-level overview of today's agenda. We're going to start with some introductions, introducing myself as well as Nadal. We'll then go into the main portion of today's webinar, where we go through the 5 GA4 features that will improve your data insights. Those are going to be standard Explore reports, how you can create those, benchmarking, scheduled reports, custom insights, audience triggers. And then in addition to that, we actually pulled in some bonus features. So for those of y'all who are joining, you'll also see some bonus features. That's going to be your lifetime value analysis, save segments and comparisons, advertising reports, and then primary channel groups, and why we think that those are important, especially heading into the holiday season, as well as thinking about 2025. With that, we'll also dive into some InfoTrust resources and things along those lines. So a little bit about InfoTrust. InfoTrust is a digital analytics and media enablement company with focus on privacy-centric solutions to drive measurable business outcomes for brands. You can see that we have a wealth of Google certifications across various teams that we work with. If you ever have questions, whether we work with a product, it's more than likely that we do, as well as, especially if it's analytics. So feel free to always reach out to us. Also, you can see that we are a GMP certified reseller for both Analytics 360, DV 360, Campaign Manager, and looking to also get certified in a few other ones to be able to resell those. So if those are something that you have interest in, how we can help your business, feel free to reach out and let us know. With that, we'll go ahead and jump into our introduction slide. So as I mentioned, I'm today's webinar host. You'll see me here off and on, but the main content will be coming from Nadal. So my name is Jared Fisher. I'm a lead digital analytics specialist. If you've joined some of these webinars in the past, you've probably seen me before. I love helping clients as well as internal folks understand best practices around GA4, setting up some of those best practices and solving some of the complex issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so you might see me also jump in on a few of your client calls from here to there, depending on what kind of issues are coming up. But with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to today's host, Nadal, to introduce himself.
Thank you, Jared, for kicking us off. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. For those of you who are on the same side of the earth as me, I'm based out of Dubai. It's evening, like around 7 p.m.-ish. I know we have some folks coming in from Europe, Asia, and probably a few from the US or in the North American continents. Anyways, thanks for joining in. We will be covering some GA4 features, some really interesting ones, like Jared already mentioned. And the best part is that we will be doing side-by-side review of how these features or products look, product features look like in the interface. So this webinar is going to be interspersed with a lot of demos, and we'll try to cover as much as we can from a point of view of how do you realize the value of these features by going into the tool and navigating to those respective sections, doing some quick analysis, deriving the value from the tool, and then eventually applying that to your day-to-day, right? As well as sharing whatever you learned with your team members, others who you work very closely with, collaborate with while using insights from GA4. So all of that lies ahead. And without further ado, I'd love to go ahead and kick this off. So we have realized, based on feedback, we have, as a user myself, I have stumbled across some of these problems, right? And you might have as well, right? These are generally some of the problem statements that we have as business users when we use analytics tools, tools similar to Google Analytics 4, but not just GA4, right? Similar other tools as well. And some of those challenges are, one is low familiarity with custom reporting. We all would have heard this probably before, that GA4 comes with a lot of custom reporting capabilities, but have we started making the best of those templates that are available? The way you can click a custom report with just a single click of a button, right? How you can create a custom report with a click of a button, and how you can use some of the existing templates. So we will not spend a ton of time on custom reporting, but we will look at some really helpful hacks that are good to know, especially for someone who's not very comfortable with putting together reports on their own. So we'll look at that. That's one of the first problems that we'll try to address today. The second problem is how does my data compare to similar other companies or peers in the industry? And this has been a question that I have been personally, from my experience as a consultant, been asked a lot of times. We always have data as compared to my company's or my website's performance last year, but can I look at something like what's the average bounce rate in this industry, or what is the average engagement rate, which is one of the newer GA4 metrics for similar websites such as mine? And those type of questions can get answered. GA4 actually came up with a very recent release just last month, actually, with benchmarking data availability, and we'll talk about that briefly. So again, something to look forward to. We have had challenges where teams are not making data-driven decisions. They are not adopting the reports that are available at their fingertips. How can you ensure that there's more adoption? How can you let's say your team members drive decisions with data? So that's another problem statement that we're going to address with some of the features that are available within GA4. And when it comes to dealing with data gaps or anomalies, typically businesses have the tendency to just deal with every fire as it happens, right? And rather than having a proactive approach, ideally, yes, all of us want to be there, that we are enabled with the data or the alerts or the monitoring mechanism that will help us address these gaps quicker. But yes, how can you do that with GA4? So we will talk about that. And then lastly, where the buck lies is when you use GA4 to its full potential and then start using that to activate and set up audiences, remarkets, or personalize. And when it comes to those types of use cases, how can you look at effective ways to qualify audiences for those types of remarketing use cases? So these are just like some of the problem statements that we will try to address with the different features or functionality that you have available. So let's look at the first feature that we wanted to highlight today. We talked about 5 features that we will present on this webinar, but at the end, we also have a few bonus features, which hopefully will also be interesting stuff that we will cover, right? So the first one, which is also happens to be one of my personal favorites, which is the reason I put it at number 1, is the standard to explore. And what this feature is essentially letting you create a custom report by just the click of a button, and that custom report gives you a template that is already something you're looking at, right? And you just want to use that existing template to make it easier for you to just add additional dimensions, metrics, etc. So that's the first feature we are going to look at. Many of you might have seen this button on the standard detailed reports. So GA4 has different types of reports. You might have seen the overview reports. For example, for each of the main report categories, such as acquisition, engagement, monetization, you have overview reports. And overview reports do not have this feature. When you go into the sub reports within those sections, that's where you have the detailed reports, and each of the detailed reports have this button available at the top right, which helps you export that report into analysis and into that whiteboard, right, into that canvas where you can drag and drop metrics and dimensions of your choice to put together additional custom, breakdowns, drill downs, etc. So this is one of my personal favorites, especially when I am looking at, for example, just breaking a report down by an additional secondary dimension. I can do that within the standard report itself. But if I want to add, like, let's say 2 to 3 more dimensions, I want to change how the visualization looks instead of a table. I want to maybe adjust it to see like a line chart. Those are the things that this feature or functionality makes it much easier to do. So as I said before, we'll be switching between the interface back and forth just to look at what these features look like on the interface on the platform. So I do have a demo account here, which has dummy data. And we'll be using this demo property for demonstrating this feature, right? So like I said, you have a bunch of reporting options available, some standard and detailed reports available. Now, if I wanted to do some quick analysis of the events data, for example, if I wanted to add a custom, an additional, let's say, secondary dimension to just break this down by, let's say, something like the operating system, I could do that by just adding that secondary dimension and breaking it down. But then if I wanted to see something more in more depth, right? If I wanted to see, for example, an additional breakdown of this to see which device it is, that is something I'd have to do using a custom report, because a standard report would just allow me to do one breakdown, and I don't have the option to add an additional breakdown. So that's just one of the examples. If I wanted to just do that with my Explore report, the easiest way to do it is click on the Export this report to analysis. And what that does is use that existing standard report templates, import it into Explore, which is the custom reporting tool available within GA4, which you can also access from here, by the way. And what it does is it gives you a bunch of tabs that have the data replicated from the original standard report. So if you remember, in the original standard report, you had a bunch of widgets. You had 2 widgets on the top. There was 1 table at the bottom. So each of them have been split out into separate tabs, so you can play around with it as you like. Now, one of the cool features that GA also has is how it can detect anomaly, right? And this is also available within the standard reports, but you do have the additional options to, such as adjust the training period for the anomaly or the sensitivity from low to high, right? These are just like a few additional options that you have available to adjust the sensitivity of the anomaly. So if you maybe, for example, reduce the sensitivity, you're just looking at the high variations, the ones where there's like significant increase or decrease. So that's just a quick example of how you can see that visual, what you had in your standard report within your Explore report, and you can quickly change the chart type and other details from here, the dimensions and the metrics that are available, right? And import additional ones if you don't see all of them listed here. So that's a quick use case of how you can customize this. And earlier we talked about having just one breakdown available, but if I wanted to add another breakdown, let's say source or medium, right? If I wanted to import another dimension, I could just bring in source, And from the traffic source, let's just add, let's say, session source. And if I bring that in and add that to the breakdown here, you have the additional option of seeing data for that as well, right? So what the custom reporting enables you is to look at additional data points, do more drill downs than your standard reports permits, because yes, you can customize your standard reports, you can edit them in your default view, but there are certain sort of limitations, right? Now, if I wanted to look this in an expanded way, because some of the columns, etc., is not visible, I could just minimize these couple of tabs and just to see like the view in a much cleaner way, right? Without having to do much horizontal scrolling. So those are just like some quick tips of how you can export an existing standard report into the analysis pane and then start customizing it, changing the visual type, changing additional details that you're not able to do within your standard report. So that's the first feature for you right there. The second one is also one that has been a popular ask in the industry. How do I understand that the metrics that I am seeing are good metrics, right? Are good values, looking at the industry average. And that's one of the latest features that Google released in the October releases. So benchmarking is now available in pretty much a lot of the properties that are out there. What we've also heard from Google is that this is getting rolled out to more and more properties. So if you do not see it by any chance in one of your GA4 properties, it might just be because this is still getting rolled out to some. But that being said, there's a few additional things to also understand about benchmarking. So for example, what benchmarking data does is it gives you reference metrics to compare your set of metrics with peers in the same industry and peer group. However, one thing to note is that benchmarking is not available for every metric that is there in GA4. It is available for a specific set of metrics, and you'll know which ones when you look at the interface. So that's just something to note. And this is what it looks like once you enable benchmarking data. And there's a specific widget that has benchmarking data available on the homepage right now. We don't know if down the line we will have this available across like different other widgets. But at the moment, if you wanted to look at benchmarks specifically on the homepage, top left, there's this widget which helps you select the metric of your choice, which is supported with benchmarking, of course, and then see the benchmarking data for your peers. Now, a few other things to also note is that for data that is available for benchmarking, there's like a couple of conditions. There are certain thresholds to be met. Similar other GA4 properties should also have, let's say, minimum user volume or certain data thresholds that are defined by Google that has to be met in order for this to be available. But we have seen that, like at least in 5 to 10 GA4 properties that I've looked at ever since this feature came out, this has not been a problem. And I've seen as long as it's collecting, decent amount of data, I've been able to see benchmarking data. But also noting that there's like a range of data that is available. So there could be, depending on how much variability is there in the data for your industry peers, there could be a larger range, which is this shaded area that you see here, right, which is 25th percentile to 75th percentile, and then the dotted line, which is your median. So that's also something worth noting. One prerequisites for benchmarking data to be available is this particular setting within your account settings should be enabled, which is for modeling contributions and business insights. And this is also one of the settings that is required for, let's say, behavioral modeling data to be available. And it is recommended to check with legal teams to ensure that sharing this data with Google follows the policies outlined by your organization. So we would recommend taking the necessary caution before enabling this checkbox. But generally, we have observed that when you are creating a new account on Google Analytics, this checkbox is usually checked by default. So unless you have unchecked it, it is possible that option is already selected and benchmarking data is already available for you. So we've already talked about the thresholds that are in place, such as the minimum number of properties within a peer group that have this data available before it becomes available in that peer group. And then it's also refreshed every 24 hours. Benchmarking data is aggregated as well as private, so it is encrypted, and hence row level data or broken down data will not be accessible. It's just these high level trend lines and the range of data within those trend lines that becomes available. So let's look at benchmarking also in the product interface. So like I said, make sure you're on the home page, and within the home page, the top left widget is where you have benchmarking data available, and this icon indicates whether your property has benchmarking feature rolled out by Google already. Now you can see that that icon is grayed out at the moment, and when you click into that icon, it says that, okay, benchmarking is not available for this metric, right? Which is what I was also saying earlier. All of the metrics that are available by default or show by default here do not have benchmarking enabled. In order to select a metric that's supported by benchmarking, you would need to look into this specific new category for benchmarking metrics and then add one of those to your view. So for example, if I wanted to look at views per active user, I can see that this is where my GA4 properties data lies, and this is where the industry average is, right? And which tells me that my numbers are higher than the industry average. Looking at the specific category, which is the peer group that has been selected for my property, right? That is shopping. So that something else to also look at is the categorization accurate by Google, and this is also determined by the industry category you chose during your account setup, right? So that's a few interesting things to note about benchmarking. Also talked about account settings earlier, and within the account settings, this is the checkbox that you would need to enable in order to make sure that benchmarking data becomes available to you, right? So that's the other quick checkpoint to note. So with that, we have covered two really cool features within GA4. The next one we have is scheduled reports. So in case you were not aware, if you have to look at the report at regular intervals of time, maybe there's like a monthly report that you are putting together, and one of the data sources is a specific report within GA4. You could have that report generated and sent to you via email, and it can also have certain conditions applied, such as certain filters or comparisons, and that's what scheduled reports can do for you. So in short, you can have reports sent out to you via email following a fixed cadence, let's say, weekly ones or monthly ones, etc. Up to 50 reports can be scheduled using this option, and reports can only be sent to users who already have access to the GA4 property. So when you go in and try to add a recipient to the list, if that is someone who does not have access to that GA4 property, their email cannot be entered, and it should be someone who already has access to that GA4 property. It can be viewer access also, but any user to be added will need to have access already. Filters or comparisons may be applied. So when you set this up the first time, if you have applied filters or comparisons, those will also get applied to the scheduled report that gets sent out, and only admin users can schedule the report. So that's also something worth noting. In case you don't see the option to create the scheduled reports, that's probably because you may not have admin access to the property. So let's look at where this lies within the interface as well. If you go to, let's say, one of your reports and you have admin access to the property, you have the option to share the report, and there's within that you have the option to schedule email, which is what you would ideally need to click. You can name the report using any certain name that you'd like to see within your email. You can add a description. When you click into this recipient list, it will show you the list of users who already have access to this property, and you can just select those or just like use it as a search bar. And then there's a bunch of scheduling options, including adjusting the format to either a PDF or a CSV, and a few other additional details as well. So this is what you can do. This is how you can schedule reports to be sent to your inboxes or to your team members' inboxes at a certain period of time. And that's how you can do it within the interface as well. So let's now switch back. So the other thing to note is that you, at any point in time, if you want to look at which are the reports that have already been set up in the scheduled emails, that is also available in your admin settings. So navigate to your admin panel, and within the property settings, there is a section for scheduled emails. For this demo property, there's none scheduled right now, but once it is set up, you will start seeing those lists here. And then you'll also be able to manage or adjust the settings, changes, etc. Using this option. So that's also something to note. With that, we have covered the third feature that we wanted to do today. The next one is also happens to be like one of the crowd favorite ones, right? A lot of you wanted to understand how you can access or have these insights alerts set up and sent out to you using Google's proprietary machine learning algorithms. So let's look at how we can set up custom insights or alerts or monitoring that can trigger emails to your inboxes. So we look at how we can do this from the interface, but when you're setting up a custom insight or alert, there's a bunch of templates that you can choose from, right? Which is something that's available within Google. So there's recommended custom insights or suggested custom insights, one of which you can choose to use it as a template and build off of it. Or you can just like start from scratch and create your own, right? And when you try to create your own, there's a bunch of things that you can also select. Either you let Google determine what is defined as an anomaly. So Google has certain criteria for it. It looks at a training period, which is data collected historically for a certain period, and then identifies what percentage of increases or decreases can classify as an anomaly. So you can either let Google decide that, which is when you set up this option of letting Google choose when the anomaly occurs, right? Or you can set up your own thresholds. If there are certain values beyond which you need to get alerted for a certain metric, you can set up that anomaly value yourself and specify it while setting up the custom insights. And then also include, the email address to be for that to be sent out to. So let's look at where you can set up these custom insights. On the home page, you might have already observed the insights section. There are certain GA4 properties for which, if there is not enough data collected, you might not see the insight section. It might look like this. If there is a lot of data collected, you will see a bunch of insight widgets, and within those you have a button somewhere on the top right here to click into and then set up the custom insights. In this case, since there are no insights because not enough data in this demo sandbox property, you just click into that box that I just clicked in right now, and that helps you create your own insights. So like we already discussed, at the top, you have a bunch of templates that Google has, right? Which you can use to just like select all and create all the selected or the recommended insights. Or you can start from scratch by create new, and then use some of the conditions available, use certain segments or a metric from the drop down that is available here. Again, not all metrics are supported, but there's like a bunch such as total users. And if you do not want Google to decide what the anomaly is, you can specify either percentage increases, percentage decreases, or any percentage change, whether it be increase or decrease. So that's percentage change. Or absolute values, right? So if you select less than or equal to and specify an absolute value, Google will look at the frequency at which this needs to be set up and checked for, and then send you alerts. So if some of these are, let's say, your key performance indicators, there's a chance that you might want to get alerted maybe not on a daily basis, but at least let's say on a monthly basis, right? In some cases where traffic has significantly decreased, and you want to be proactive in approaching it or addressing it rather than being reactive when you find out during a critical moment when you're pulling together data for a presentation you need to do urgently. So that's about the custom insights feature, which helps you create alerts for different types of anomalies, whether it be defined by Google or you want to, decide custom based on your own requirements. The last feature we will cover today is audience triggers, and audience triggers is a way for you to create an event when a certain user becomes the member of an audience. So, for example, if someone performs an action on the website that gets them added to a new audience that you have already set up, you can also create an event which helps you easily report on those types of interactions, right? So what could be some of those interactions, or let's say milestones? If someone initiated a certain number of sessions, or if someone read 5 articles or completed a couple of purchases, then you've already set up an audience for those types of interactions, and you can also create an event, which is what audience trigger does. So when you create the audiences in the audience creation or the audience builder interface, you have the option to check this box and create a new event off of it, which will help you better with your reporting use cases as well. Some interesting things to note about audience triggers. If an existing event satisfies the condition for an audience trigger event, you are able to also copy the metadata from that existing event into the audience event, such as user information or session information. If there's a user ID that you want to pass on from the original events to an audience trigger event, you can do that by just setting it up accordingly. And up to 20 audience trigger events can be created per property. So that's sort of the official limits. And let's before we go to the bonus features, I want to also quickly show where you can set up the audience triggers. So within admin, under property settings, data display, you have audiences, and that's where you can create your new audience as well as look at all of your historically set up audiences, along with the numbers that will tell you like how many users belong to each of those audiences. And when you create a new audience, you're probably aware there's a bunch of templates that are available, but when you're creating, let's say, a custom audience, you have the audience trigger option here. And once you define the conditions for an audience, you can also choose to optionally add the audience trigger by specifying the name of that event as well. There's one additional checkbox here in case the audience membership refreshes and someone performs that action, let's say like second time gets added or considered for that audience. If you want to log an additional event, that's an additional option that you have. But essentially, that's the audience trigger feature for you to also log an event when certain interactions or certain milestones happen, which will help you also evaluate, let's say, a series of actions that can be considered as, let's get this user added to an important audience for some of the remarketing activities or for following up with them to personalize, etc. Let's now look at the bonus feature. So we have covered 5 really cool features, but we decided to also share a bit about, let's say, we have some more time, and there's a lot more features that are available, probably some of them not used as much, right? So one template that has always existed within Explore or custom reporting is lifetime value analysis. And if you have not used it, especially while you have revenue generation on the websites or on the interactions. So if there's like value or value to your events, such as purchase events or certain other events where you have set up certain value, it's if you're not doing a longer term analysis of ever since a customer first visited my website, how much are they, let's say, contributing to revenue, how is a certain channel contributing in a long-term view, right? Is it consistently adding more value? So that's essentially what lifetime value analysis can do for you. This is a sample snippet of what the analysis looks like once you have put it together, and we also look at how you can do it in the interface. So essentially, lifetime value analysis helps you analyze user behavior and value over their lifetime as a customer, ever since they sort of first visited your website. And it'll also help you analyze combinations of data, such as not just user behavior over time, but specific sources, mediums, or campaigns that, for example, drive most value, right, over a longer period of time, and other unique user behavior insights. So let's look at the lifetime value templates, which is available within Explore. So quick recap, we talked about how you can easily access Explore report using the left side navigation panel and clicking into Explore. And once you do that, you have a bunch of templates available here within your template gallery. Usually, I always start off with a free form table because that's the easiest one to do my analysis on. Just put together a bunch of dimensions metrics to look at tabular data, which is one of the easiest ways to like consume that information, right? But for specific use cases like lifetime value analysis, there is an existing template available, which is the user lifetime templates. And when you click into that, it pre-populates with certain metrics and dimensions. So let me reload this. I'm going to start fresh with a new tab. So yeah, this property does not have a lot of ton of data, which is why the lifetime value is lower than you would expect to see. And actually, there was another property I had looked at, but GA had some caching issues, I guess, which is why I had to like default back to the other property. Anyways, when you bring in your lifetime value templates, when you open it up, you get some of these pre-selected values, right? You get some of these metrics, such as total users, average lifetime value, lifetime engagement duration, as well as lifetime transactions. And this is a good indication of over a longer period of time, is there a certain channel or medium that drove higher value as compared to some of the others? And towards the end, I'll still try to see if I can pull up the report with the property example that ideally shows a good amount of data, because this is a sandbox property. It does not have a ton of data, but we'll try to get back to that. So that's lifetime value analysis, one of the first bonus features. Next up, we have saved segments and comparisons. So this was also another pain point, that if I, as a GA4 property user, set up a segment for certain analysis, I'm not able to reuse that segment in another analysis within the same GA4 property, or some other user within that same GA4 property is not able to use the same segment, which means that there could be different definitions in how segments are defined, as well as comparisons, right? These are features available within GA4. So Google has released over the course of the last few weeks or months these two features. The first one is saved segments. So you are now able to save any segment definitions, standard segment definitions, into your GA4 property for other users to also reuse that same segment definition, right? And the same applies for saved comparisons as well. So that's more of a quick call out that we wanted to make. And these are available within your admin panel under property settings and within data display. So saved segments and saved comparisons are available here for quick reference. Once you have saved some of those for future purposes, or for sharing it with, let's say, another GA4 property user to use a standard definition across the board for some of these analysis purposes. Next up, we have advertising reports. So one quick note or prerequisite for advertising reports to show up in GA4 property is to ensure that you have enabled the integrations between the different marketing platform tools, such as Google Ads or Display Video 360 or Search Ads 360. Once you have enabled those integrations, you are able to see these reports populate within GA4. So there's a bunch of reports that are available here, more getting added, some of them in beta, and still, one of the best parts about these reports is that they give you more of an end-to-end view of how did certain campaigns perform from a point of view of the number of impressions that an ad got versus the number of clicks that happen on those ads versus the actual website behavior that someone, after landing on the website, did they perform the real call to action that mattered, which is what the ad was driving towards, right? Maybe signing up for a newsletter or purchasing a certain product, or at least watching a video, right? In case of, let's say, awareness campaigns or things like that. So this is where you get more of that end-to-end view and more value out of using different platforms end-to-end. So GA is sort of placed as the brain within the GMP platform as well, right? It's sort of the central elements which helps you pull in data from all of these different marketing platform tools that you have, and then give it to you on a canvas view where you are able to see that data sort of end to end. So let's understand this a bit more in detail. I've outlined the different reports in here and what each of these do. So let's talk about those very, very briefly. The advertising snapshot report is just like any of those other snapshot reports for your other reporting segments. It gives you a high level bird's eye view of insights relating to different key events. The conversion performance report is currently in beta, and it gives you the conversions or the key events count as well as performance. It's gradually being rolled out to more and more GA4 properties. Attribution reports analyze how credit is allocated to the different different channels using different attribution models. So Google deprecated a lot of the attribution models that were available within Universal Analytics, such as position-based or those types of other models. Now there's primarily two types of attribution models, right? There's the last click attribution model, and then the default, which is data-driven attribution model. So the attribution set of reports will help you compare how different attribution models attribute credits to different channels. And then it will also give you the paths where conversion occurred, more conversions occurred when certain users are exposed in a certain order to the different channels. And we'll look at that report in a bit on the interface as well. The planning reports give you a high-level view of different marketing campaigns and channels across all of your GMP platforms, which are the ones that are listed here. The advertising segments gives you a view of the list of GA users that are also synced with other Google platforms. So it gives you a good picture of what is the audience that are available to me already synced within my other GMP platforms, which is available for activation use cases. And then you have a couple of other reports, such as publisher ads reports, which will tell you the engagement revenue associated with each individual ads, right? And so we won't look at all of these, obviously, in the interest of time, but we look at some of them, right? Such as the attribution paths report, right? It breaks down the different channels that someone engaged with into 3 stages. The ones with early touch points, right? In the initial phases of someone maybe considering a brand or looking at doing more research about a brand, right? There's the mid touch points, which are probably in the further research or from a time window standpoint, something that's like at least a few weeks back or a few months back, right? And then late touch points, and the Google definition for each of these is also available here, right? It talks about how these are, let's say, the first 25% of touch points, the mid 50% of touch points, and then the last 25% of touch points. So these are all available with the definitions when you hover over these like tooltips. And what it basically gives you as a breakdown down below is when someone gets exposed to only a certain channel, right? 100%. What does that look like from a revenue standpoint? And when you have too much of attribution going into direct, it might also indicate that there's certain paid activity that's not getting correctly attributed, right? So there might be some things to further look into. But again, this is dummy data from a demo sandbox account from Google. So you might see data differently in your respective GA4 properties. And then if you look at, for example, organic search appears twice, and actually more than that. The first one is where someone got exposed to organic search only once within the period that you are looking at for this report, right? And if someone got exposed to organic search twice, right, they came to Google and searched a couple of times, right, over that window, and how much revenue did that lead to, right? So that's essentially what this report gives you, and that's also how data-driven attribution works, right? When it assigns credit across different channels that a user interacted with, it looks at the order in which someone got exposed to those ads. Does bringing in an additional channel as a touch point between, let's say, when someone organically searched for it versus when they got a display ad served to them, does that increase the chances or the probability of that person converting and adding to more revenue, right? And that's the sort of insights that you get from this report. It also gives you additional metrics that are available here, each of which also has a tooltip that explains, what it means. So that's one of the key attribution reports you have. And then there's this report, which helps you compare the different attribution models that you have used, with, for example, last click versus data driven, and how credit is assigned differently. And then you have Google Ads reports or Display Video 360 reports, depending on whether you have already integrated those platforms with your GA. Only then you will see those set of reports, right? And for each of those, you have data that shows end to end, right? We talked about how you can see data from a point of view of, let's say, ads cost or ad clicks, and then the actual revenue from the website, right? And the actual number of key events, right? Which also gives you a calculated metric that is ROAS, right? Return on ad spend. So this is more of the end-to-end reporting that you have available with some of these default metrics and ads campaigns that are available in the advertising set of reports. So that's pretty much the key advertising reports that I wanted to cover today. The last feature which we have today before we wrap up and go to questions is primary channel groups. Primary channel groups, default channel group was already available when GA4 first came through, but then Google made primary channel groups available, which is essentially selecting out of either your default channel group that Google provides to you or one of your custom channel groups. You can set one of them as your primary channel group, which also helps you export that information to BigQuery, right? And we'll talk about that a bit. So primary channel groups are essentially editable channel groups. What is a channel group? It is how channels get defined using certain set of rules, right? For example, if traffic originated from a site that Google identifies as a search engine, such as Google or Bing, right? Then it gets categorized into a certain channel, right? Organic search. If it comes with certain parameters in the URL that Google also identifies using certain rules, then it becomes paid search or paid social and so on and so forth, right? So that's basically channel grouping. But primary channel groups are now available, and how you can change within settings is going into your property settings. Under data display channel groups, you can set up new channel groups, right? And then you can edit the primary channel group to something that is other than the default channel group that's available from Google. So this is how you can set up and maybe create a new channel group with custom definitions. Maybe you have separate, let's say, traffic channels dedicated to your brand, right? Which are not available here. For example, AI search driven traffic. If you want to categorize that as a channel, you could do that by defining some custom rules, looking at traffic originating from certain domains, etc. Right? When you want to do those types of custom channel grouping, you could define one of those as your primary channel group by selecting that here. And when it comes to having this data being available in BigQuery, the cross-channel dimensions are already available for reporting, and any channel group that needs to be replicated within BigQuery should also be set up as the primary channel group, right, within your GA4 interface. So that way you can also bring in your custom channel groups into BigQuery, right, that data, so that you have data matching within your interface versus BigQuery more closely, right? So that's one of the big changes there as well. So with that, we have covered all of the really cool features that we wanted to surface to you from a GA4 point of view. Some of these have been game changing. We monitor this very closely at InfoTrust as well, look at what are some of the latest features, and that's also where my colleague Jared comes in, right? He does a great job of looking at what's new in GA4. So I'm going to pass this back to Jared. Over to you, Jared.
Awesome. Appreciate it all. Super helpful. Appreciate all those features. As we start looking for 2025, obviously we want to keep these webinars going and make them as useful as possible to y'all as our clients or potential clients, whatever y'all might be. And so for that use case, you've probably seen that a poll has been launched. What GA4 features or capabilities is your organization most interested in for 2025? Really, the goal of this is to inform future webinars or also where there might be blind spots. So it's kind of general, high level. We want to make sure that we're focusing on things that are most important for y'all, especially for your organization in 2025. So if you want to participate in that poll, feel free to submit that or submit your responses. This will be helpful and be utilized in the future. So you might see things that are more geared towards those. Right now, it seems like BigQuery is the hot topic, which we have obviously seen as well. It is something that's very important. And just a quick shout out because I'm kind of in the planning for this. BigQuery is going to be something that we try and tackle early in Q1 for folks with a webinar series actually to help y'all best understand how to move forward with BigQuery. So definitely stay on the lookout for that. Those registration pages will be going live here soon, hopefully. So that you can start getting those registered but right now we're currently in that planning phase for that. So definitely some exciting things there, but appreciate y'all's engagement on that poll. That's super helpful. With that said, we're going to actually dive into some resources. So if you're interested in some resources already, feel free to check out our resource library. We have a very built out resource library. Just as a quick note, you can either select articles, you can select on demand. If you just select the resource at the very top of the page, that's actually going to give you a combination of both of those. So you can definitely go ahead and select that. It will also give you a combination of like upcoming events. That would be these kinds of webinars that we continue to do. So those BigQuery webinars. Those will also be in all of our marketing newsletters, as well as our weekly product updates if you receive those from your product team. So definitely check out our resource library. There's lots of information on this. We try to keep this up to date as best we can. And typically there's roughly 2 pieces of content that are coming out a week, if not more. So we're very excited for our resource library. With that, we will actually jump into our Q&A section here with about 5 minutes to go. And the first question that we have on the board is from Jason. So can we schedule explore reports, or is it just standard and altered standard reports? And I'll pass it over to you. You're on mute, just heads up.
Yep. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
So we have a question from Jason. Can we schedule explore reports? So going back to schedule reporting, or is it just standard reports and altered reports at this moment?
Yeah, I believe it is only standard reports at this point. But yeah, if anything changes, we will also be sort of monitoring updates from Google there, right? So yeah, at this moment, it's just scheduled reports for standard reports and specifically the detailed reports within standard reports. So not all standard reports either.
Next question is from Luis. Can we create new GA4 insights for all users with GA4 access, or do we always need to put it in the emails?
So can we create new insights for all users with access? Uh, I think when you create new insights or custom alerts setup, you have to specify the users that this needs to go to. So by default, I have not seen an all users selection there. You usually have to like specify which emails these go out to, right? So it might have to be just like selected individually for all the users that you would need to send it out to.
We have another question from Luis. What is the minimum role that you need to be able to set up segments and comparisons, save those, edit those, things like that?
To set up segments and comparisons, if I'm not wrong, it should be marketing. But I can also like quickly verify that because I do have that documented somewhere as well. So let me just check quickly.
And
Yeah,
I
I think
believe
it should
I
be.
believe in it all. You're right that it's marketing is for audiences, and then
Yep.
analysts should be your comparison segments, things along those lines. In
Yeah.
order to edit save comparisons, you might need edit role permissions. It might also just be analysts, but yeah.
Yep. I think that answers it. Thank you, Jared.
Perfect. Next one is so save segments. And there's a poll that's going to be launching. If you want more information, feel free to fill out this poll. This is just to make sure we capture those who need to drop off. But last question that we have here. Are you able to edit segments down the line? I know this was a big issue with audiences. Once those are created, they cannot be edited or updated. Do you have any feedback on that at all?
I think so. Yes, it can be edited. So with audiences, yes, there were certain limitations, such as you cannot change certain aspects like the definition of the audience itself, but you can change the segment definitions, not for the system segments. So there are certain system defined segments for which you do not have the ability to like edit it, but something that you have set up, you should be able to change the definitions. And the other thing to also note is that in case you want to like just create a copy of an existing segment, you can just like duplicate an existing segment and change certain parameters within it, right? So that's another option you have available.
Perfect. All right, and with that, we can go ahead and jump to our last slide of the day, which is just our thank you page. We appreciate y'all joining today. We know it's a time commitment that y'all have to give. I also want to say my sincere thank you to Nadal for presenting this. There's lots of great information. If you do have any other questions or want to watch this recording back, feel free to reach out to your project team. If you're a current client or for future client, feel free to reach out to InfoTrust, contact us. More than happy to put you in contact with those that can help you best fit your need. But appreciate y'all joining today. Take care.
Thanks everyone for joining.